Hi students, welcome to Sunil's tutorial. I'm Sunil Mirwani and today we'll be doing this chapter called as control and coordination. Let's see this guys. Let's see the structure of human ear. Here. Right? Now, the human ear is divided into three parts. That's the external ear, the middle ear and the internal ear. Right? The first two parts, that's the external ear and the middle ear, are concerned with hearing, whereas the last part is concerned with maintaining equilibrium and posture of the body. So I can say that it is divided into three main parts: the external ear, the middle ear and the internal ear. Right? The first two parts are concerned with hearing. The first two parts are concerned with hearing and the last part is concerned with hearing. That's your internal ear. The last part is concerned with hearing as well as for maintaining equilibrium and posture of the body. Equilibrium and posture of body. Right? Now let's try to see the three parts in detail. First, let us try to understand the external ear. Right? The external ear. The technical name for the external ear is the auricle, and it is formed by an immovable cartilaginous portion called as pinna, which is going to be here. Right? Immovable cartilaginous portion called as pinna and an external auditory canal. This is your external auditory canal. Can you just see the diagram please? So this is your immovable cartilaginous portion called as pinna. Then you have the external auditory canal, and which is protected with hair and wax. Right? The pinna leads the external ear. The pinna and the external auditory canal contain certain glands. These glands act as a fly trap for insects, dust and potential irritants. The pinna and the external auditory canal contain certain glands owing to which you would not have dust particles, you would not have insects or any other thing that would irritate your ear go inside. Right? The auditory canal finally enters through a thin, delicate membranous diaphragm. This is that diaphragm here, right, which is called as the tympanic membrane or the tympanum or the eardrum. The pinna serves to collect the sound vibrations. The structure of the pinna, the external ear, is so made so as to collect maximum sound vibrations. Fine, that is my external ear. So the external ear is made up of the pinna and the auditory canal. The second thing that you need to know is that you have glands that do not allow anything to enter. And finally, the end of the external auditory canal is a thin, delicate membrane which is called as the tympanic membrane. Fine? Can we write this much down first? External ear. Its technical name is the auricle. it is formed. What is it made up of? It is formed of immovable cartilages. It is formed of immovable cartilaginous portion called pinna and an external auditory canal. External auditory canal that is protected with hair and wax. That is protected with hair and wax. Right? That is what is the external ear made up of. Pinna leads to the external auditory canal. Pinna leads to the external auditory canal, which contains ceruminous glands. Right? These glands act as a fly paper trap. For insects, dust and other potential irritants. Right? The auditory canal finally enters to thin, delicate membranous diaphragm. Called tympanum or the eardrum. Right? Pinna, function of pinna. Pinna serves to collect sound vibration. Pinna serves to collect sound vibrations. That's the function of pinna. Try to get this in here. So that was the external ear. Try to get this in here. Next, let's move on ahead. Let's move on to the middle ear. Right? Now, can you just see the middle ear here? Now, the middle ear is nothing but it is an air-filled cavity, which is also called as the tympanic cavity, in the cranial bone. Here it is. It is an air-filled cavity in the cranial bone, right? Now, the eustachian tube starts from the middle ear and it communicates with the pharynx. This is the eustachian tube, right? It serves to equalize the pressure on the two sides of the tympanic membrane. Otherwise, there's a chance that it would, break. There would be a rupture in it, right? So it is the eustachian tube that makes sure that you have equal pressure on both the sides, right? Now, what is the middle ear made up of? It is made up of 3 ear ossicles, which are called as the malleus, the incus, and the straps. Right? These are those 3 bones that you have here that link the eardrum to the inner ear. So the end part of the external ear is the eardrum, and these 3 bones that you have here, small ear ossicles, they are the ones that link the eardrum to the inner ear. Fine, do we get this thing here? They link the eardrum to the inner ear through an oval opening. This is that oval window, right? Through an oval opening. The ear ossicles help in passing the vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. As the tympanic membrane vibrates, it causes vibrations of the 3 ossicles. The first ossicle vibrates, which passes on the vibration to the second, which passes on the vibration to the third. Right? So the ear ossicles help in passing the vibration from the eardrum to the internal ear, and also increase the force of vibration. They amplify the vibration. Directly below the oval window, there is another round window. Below this, there is another round window, which would then connect to the internal ear. Right? So do we understand the middle ear? Just let's write this down. The middle ear, it is an air-filled cavity. It is an air-filled cavity in the cranial bone. It is an air-filled cavity in the cranial bone. The eustachian tube starts from the middle ear. The eustachian tube starts from the middle ear and communicates with the pharynx. It serves to equalize the pressure on the 2 sides of the tympanic membrane. It serves to equalize the pressure. It serves to equalize the pressure between 2 sides of the tympanic membrane. Now, the middle ear. The middle ear contains 3 ear ossicles. Right? It contains 3 ear ossicles. They are called as malleus, incus, and stapes. These are the 3 ear ossicles that it contains. So the middle ear contains 3 ear ossicles called these, that link the eardrum to the inner ear. Link the eardrum to the inner ear. Fine. Inner ear through an oval opening. Through an oval opening known as fenestra, vestibule. Right? An oval opening called as fenestra vestibule. The ear ossicles help in passing the vibrations of the eardrum. Ear ossicles help in passing the vibrations. Help in passing the vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. From the eardrum to the inner ear. Right? And also increase the force of vibration. And also increase the force of vibrations. Directly below the oval window, directly below the oval window, directly below the oval window is another opening. Opening the round window. Fine. So that was the middle ear. Next, let's come to the internal ear. Now, it consists of the internal ear, which is somewhere here. Now, the internal ear consists of membranous labyrinth which lies in the perilymph of the bone. Okay, I'll just explain this to you. Now, it is made up of this membrane which is formed of vestibular apparatus and vestibular apparatus and coccyla. Right? Now, what is the vestibular apparatus? The vestibular apparatus consists of semicircular canals. Here you have those semicircular canals. So it is made up of membranes which are further divided into two types. One here and the other part of the membrane is here. One part of the membrane is called as the vestibular apparatus. The other part of the membrane is called as the coccyla. Now the vestibular apparatus consists of membranous semicircular canals, which is shown here, and it is also made up of these semicircular canals are called as the utriculus and the sacculus. Right? The semicircular canals are 3 in number. They are C-shaped and they are filled with fluid. You have 3 semicircular canals and they are C-shaped, they are filled with fluid. They are oriented in different planes, right angle to each other. Right? Pointing up and down, side and side and back and front. Right? Along the X, Y and the Z axis. To detect up and down motion, another the lateral motion, the third the front and back motion. So that's the reason you exactly come to know from where the sound is coming. Right? The ends of the semicircular canal are swollen and are called as here and they are called as the ampullae. Right? Inside this swollen part is a jelly-like lump which is called as the cristae. Right? The semicircular canals open into the utriculus and later into the sacculus by a duct. This is that duct from where they open. And they communicate with the coccyla. Right? So, do we get up till here? Then we'll see how the sound then gets converted into an impulse and is sent to the brain. Here, what we are doing is that the three bones would vibrate, right? Those vibrations would be transmitted to this C-shaped rings, which are filled with fluid, which are oriented in different directions to tell you from which direction exactly the sound is coming, right? Those vibrations are then going to be transmitted through this tube into the next part. Let's first just write this much down, guys. Internal ear, it consists of membranous labyrinth which lies in the perilymph of the bony, that's exactly where it lies, labyrinth, right? Now, the membranous structure, that is your membranous labyrinth, is formed of two things. One, the vestibular apparatus, and second, the coxilla. Right? Now, the vestibular apparatus. Vestibular apparatus. Now, the vestibular apparatus, what is it made up of? It is made up of nothing but it is made up of membranous semicircular canals. It is made up of, it consists of membranous, consists of membranous semicircular canals. Then it is made up of something called as the utriculus, and it is made up of the sacculus. These are the three things that the vestibular apparatus is made up of. Okay. Okay. Let's see this. Now, the first part here would be the semicircular canals. I can say that the semicircular canals are 3 in number and are C-shaped fluid filled loops. That is what is your semicircular canals, right? They are oriented in different planes. They are oriented in different planes. They are oriented in different planes at right angles to the other two. At right angles to the other two. Pointing up and down, side and side. Pointing up and down side and side, pointing up and down, side and side, and front back. Right? These are the three orientation. One detects the up-down motion. One detects the up-down motion, the other lateral motion. The other lateral motion. And the third. So one would detect the up-down motion, the other would detect the lateral motion, and the third is the forward motion. So thus you would exactly know how sound is being produced. Now, the ends of the semicircular canal are swollen. Ends of the semicircular canals are swollen and are called as ampullae. Right? Inside those ends, inside it is a jelly-like lump called cristae. Right? And they open into the semicircular canals, open into utriculus and later sacculus by a duct. They open into the end part of it is swollen, and those end parts open into the utriculus, and later they open into the sacculus by a duct, and in turn the sacculus communicates with the cocella. Fine. Now, that was my semicircular canal. Now coming to the utricle and the saccule. The utricle and the saccule, the second and the third part of the vestibular apparatus. Now what are these? Each utricle and saccule has a small thickened region called as the macula. These are your end parts of the C-shaped canal. The swollen part has to then connect with something. So next to the swollen part is the utricle, after that is the saccule. The saccule then communicates with the cocella. Right? So I can say that each utricle and saccule has a thickened region called macula, containing hair cells embedded in a jelly-like membrane. So each utricle and saccule has a thickened region called as the macula, which contain hair cells embedded in a jelly-like membrane. Now inside the membrane How does it communicate? Inside the membrane, you have chalky granules which are found, right? You have those small granules that would vibrate. So inside the membrane, chalky granules are found and are called otoliths. You have these chalky granules inside. Now these granule crystals respond to the pull of the gravity to any movement in the head and thus maintain the equilibrium of the body. These granules, crystals, which are present inside this membrane, respond to the pull of gravity, respond to the pull of gravity, respond to the pull of the gravity to any movement of the head, to any movement of the head, to any movement of the head, and thus maintain equilibrium of the body. That's how equilibrium of the body is maintained, right? Now the entire vestibular apparatus is filled with a fluid which is called as endolymph. Vestibular apparatus is filled with endolymph. Right? So that was my vestibular apparatus. Let's come to the next part, that is the second part you have is the coccyla. Now, this, can you just see this here in the diagram, guys? The coccyla is nothing but it is a coiled structure that makes almost 2-3/4 turns around a central bony core, right? And it is divided into, this coil structure is divided into here it is. Can you just see this? It is divided into scala vestibuli, right? Scala media, here it is, the central one, and the scala tympani, the third one. So this coil structure, guys, the coil structure makes about 2 to 3/4 turns around the central bony core, and this central bony core, which is divided into the bony core, you have this bony core and around it you would have the coil structure coming in, and the bony core is made up of scala vestibuli, scala media and scala tympani. Fine, do we get this thing clear? With the help of, now how does it make these coils? It makes these coils with the help of a membrane which is called as here, Reissner membrane, right? And there's another membrane, yeah, basilar membrane. So these are the two membranes that enable the coccyla to make coil around these three bony structures. Fine. Both the scala vestibuli and the scala tympani are both the scala vestibuli and scala tympani contain perilymph, the fluid that is present in it, a fluid which is very similar to the cerebrospinal fluid, right? The scala media is filled with endolymph, a fluid which is very similar to intracellular fluid, and it carries a row of sensory here. here you have sensory here, right? The scala sensory here. Then you have the organ of Corti. Here is your organ of Corti. Now the organ of Corti is located in the basilar membrane. The organ of Corti is sensitive to sound vibration, and it conducts sound stimuli. That means in proportion to the sound stimuli, it sends an impulse to the appropriate part of the brain by the auditory nerve. Auditory nerve here. Here is your auditory nerve, right? The auditory nerve then branches over the vestibular apparatus and the coccylla. So that's your part of the coccylla. Fine, do we get this in here? Very simple. You have coil structure. Coil structure is on 3 bony membranes. There are 2 different types of membranes, right? And at the end of which you have that organ of Corti, which is sensitive to sound impulses. As soon as sound impulses reaches there, it converts them into impulses which can be sent to the proper auditory area of the brain. Simple as that, right? Can you just write that much down? Coccylla is a coil structure which makes almost 2 3/4 turns. Almost 2 3/4 turns makes 2 3/4 turns around a central bony core. Around a central bony core, and is divided into scala vestibuli, scala media, and scala tympani. Right? So the bony core is divided into these 3 parts, and you have the coils that are made around these 3 parts, right? You would have 2 or 3/4 coils made around these 3 bony structures with the help of 2 kinds of membrane, with the help of Reissner membrane, and basilar membrane. Right? So you would have 2 or 3/4 rounds that will be made around these bony structure with the help of Reissner membrane and basilar membrane. Fine, do we get this here? I can say that both scala vestibuli and scala tympani both scala vestibuli and scala tympani contain perilymph. What is perilymph? I hope you know what is perilymph. Perilymph is a fluid which is similar to cerebrospinal fluid, and I can say that scala media is filled with endolymph. I hope you know what is endolymph. Endolymph is a fluid which is similar to the intracellular fluid. So scala media is filled with endolymph and carries a row of sensory hair cells. Fine. The organ of Corti is located in the basilar membrane. Organ of Corti is located in the basilar membrane. Fine. It is sensitive to sound vibrations. It is sensitive to sound vibrations. The organ of Corti is sensitive to sound vibrations and conducts sound stimuli conducts sound stimuli it is the one which will conduct the sound stimuli to the appropriate part of the brain. It conducts the sound stimuli to the appropriate part of the brain by the auditory nerve. Fine. The auditory nerve branches. The auditory nerve branches over the vestibular apparatus and the cochlea. Right? So that was your entire structure of the human ear. Right? We stop this here for the day. Thank you very much.